Hey there folks, Wrel here. Today we'll be reviewing the Vanu Sovereignty's hard-hitting mid-range carbine, the Pulsar C. We'll break down the stats, talk about how to use it effectively, and hopefully help you decide whether or not this carbine will fit your personal playstyle. The Pulsar C is the Vanu Sovereignty's equivalent to the NC's Razor GD23 and the TR's HC1 Cougar, in that they're all hard-hitting, moderate rate of fire weapons with an ion controllability. It'll run you 650 certifications or 500 daybreak cash, and since it is a carbine, unlocking it means that you can use it on both the engineer and the light assault classes. The Pulsar C deals 167 damage out to 10 meters, then drops off to 125 over 70 meters. This is the only VS carbine with a 167 damage model, and having that means you're looking at a 6-shot kill until 10 meters, 7 shots to kill until 44 meters, and 8 shots to kill anywhere after that. Within 10 meters, it's a 3 headshot kill, and then 4 headshots to kill anywhere after that. The Pulsar C can also equip high velocity ammo, which is going to bump your 7-shot kill range from 44 meters to around 56 meters, but I'm not really sure that I can recommend the attachment for reasons that we'll talk about later. The Pulsar C fires at 577 rounds per minute or 9.62 rounds per second, while the NC and the TR counterparts fire at only 550 rounds per minute or 9.17 rounds per second. So the Pulsar basically fires half a round more per second while the trigger is held down. Not a noteworthy difference at range, but it's at least a little bit more stopping power up close. So at 577 rounds per minute, your 6-shot time to kill is 0.52 seconds, your 7-shot time to kill is 0.62 seconds, and your 3 headshot kill is 0.2 seconds, with your 4 headshot kill coming in at 0.319 seconds. These are all approximate because I was rounding a little bit, and they're all theoretical time to kills, which means that they don't take into consideration projectile velocity. But what you're looking at here is a pretty moderate body shot time to kill and a pretty stellar 3-shot headshot time to kill. The Pulsar C's projectile velocity is 515 meters per second by default, and it gets bumped up to 550 meters per second if you equip HVA. So it's not a meager boost, but it's nothing mind-blowing either. By comparison though, your HC1 Cougar has a default velocity of 520, so about the same, but when it equips high velocity ammo, it bumps it all the way up to 600. Then you have the NC's Razor, which has an outstanding default projectile velocity of 560 already, and high velocity there bumps it up to 650. So the Pulsar C undoubtedly gets the short end of the stick here when it comes to how useful high velocity ammo is. And on top of that, it has slightly more vertical recoil already, and the higher rate of fire makes it a little bit difficult to chain low burst headshots together unless you're at a bit closer range than the other two weapons. The Pulsar C holds 30 rounds per magazine and 150 in reserve, and it has a reload speed of 1.67 seconds short, 2.16 seconds long. This is actually a little bit longer than the NC's Razor, which is kind of strange given that the VS is supposed to emphasize their faster reloads and versatility, but either way, it is pretty manageable as long as you don't hit that long reload. When it comes to recoil, the Pulsar C kicks straight up with very low shake left and right. On the first shot, it's going to kick up 0.6 degrees, while subsequent shots are going to kick at 0.4 degrees. Also, during each shot, the weapon is going to shift left or right 0.175 degrees, and it won't ever move more than 2 kicks in one direction before moving back toward the center, because it has horizontal recoil tolerance of 0.3. There is something kind of quirky with the Pulsar C that happens on other weapons as well, and I want to preface this by saying that the standard long-range setup is a compensator, it's an advanced forward grip, and it's high-velocity ammo. But something interesting is that the Pulsar C's advanced forward grip reduces its horizontal recoil by 0.577, which brings it down to 0.118, and reduces its horizontal tolerance by 0.05, which brings it down to 0.25. This results in a maximum of 3 kicks in one direction, instead of just the 2 that you'd get if you weren't running a grip at all. If you stick around for the outro slate at the end of the video, I'm going to explain how horizontal tolerance works, just so you can kind of wrap your head around the techie bits if you have an interest. But while this isn't necessarily a bad thing, it means that the gains from an advanced forward grip are somewhat debatable. Because on one hand, you do have less horizontal recoil per kick, meaning that you're less likely to miss shots due to heavier pull in one direction, especially in shorter bursts. And kicks don't actually have to hit the boundary before they start moving back to center. It's random from what I understand. On the other hand though, a maximum of 2 kicks in one direction does mean more consistency, even with worse pull on each kick, because your crosshair won't spend as much time off course before bouncing back to center. So the long story short would probably be that for shorter bursts at longer range, you still use an advanced forward grip, and for longer bursts at closer range, you use a laser sight. Nothing new in that respect, but it does let us weigh the value of our attachment options a little bit differently than other weapons. Before moving into attachments though, let's also talk about the cone of fire. The Pulsar C has an aim down sights cone of fire of 0.03 while standing, 0.3 while moving, and has a bloom of 0.06 per shot. From the hip, it's 1.5 while standing, 2 while moving, and a bloom of 0.12 per shot. And all in all, these are decent values. It's nothing amazing, but it's nothing horrible either, and it's all pretty middle of the road. So when it comes to attachment options, that kind of factors into it. There are 2 setups that I'd recommend going with the Pulsar C. That'd be your long-range setup, which is a compensator, advanced forward grip, and high-velocity ammo, or a mid-range setup with just a laser sight. If you're stopping a tower or otherwise working in close quarters, then there's nothing wrong with running a suppressor on the setup either, but the low projectile velocity will get you murdered over distance. The weapon is more than capable at close range, and a light assault can definitely do some work with a suppressed Pulsar C, but you need to be in these sorts of situations to begin with. Scope selection here is all personal preference, but a 1x or a 2x reflex feels the best for me. For the long range setup, which really just means slightly longer than mid-range setup, you gain a little bit more controllability, you gain more mid-range damage, but you do lose out at closer ranges due to the worse hip fire and louder radar signature. For the mid-range setup, you don't really lose anything, you just get a better hip fire and work with what is already a pretty great weapon. This, in my opinion, is the better, not to mention the less expensive route to take, because the reality of the situation is that the Pulsar C isn't a long-range carbine. It may technically have more reach than its lower damage brethren, but it's much better suited for mid-range combat, or even close to mid-range combat, in the same way that a lot of other carbines are. So when it comes down to it, the Pulsar C is mostly a flavor choice. If you prefer higher damage weapons with the potential for less shots spent on a target, then this weapon may be right up your alley, but it also takes a little bit more finesse to use well due to its lower rate of fire. The first thing that you need to know how to do is aim for the head, and keep your bursts within about 2 or 3 shots. Regardless of the controllability of a 167 damage weapon, the cone of fire bloom is going to get you killed. So keep that expansion low by letting off the trigger as often as possible. One strategy that I've found pretty useful on unaware targets, so people who aren't moving, they aren't paying attention, is to initiate with a 2 single shot tap to the head, and then you burst down the body. By the second tap, they've probably started to realize that they're taking damage, and that last controlled burst can easily land the last few shots that you're going to need when they do start to run. If you're in a situation where you can't afford to burst, so usually in 1v1 in close quarters or when somebody gets a jump on you, you can maximize your rate of fire and chance to hit the target by dragging down into the chest area after you start your initial burst toward the head. Much like the double tap and spray, you want to front load as much damage as you can before you start praying to the gods of RNG. Also, if you are not using a long range setup, meaning that you don't have a compensator, you do have a laser, then hip fire is your friend. The bloom can be detrimental, so you'll still need to burst, but it's a great way to retain your CQC mobility advantage while competing with other weapons more suited to the role. Overall, the Pulsar C is a good weapon for a variety of ranges. It's easy to control thanks to the vertical recoil pattern, but still has a bit of kick that you'll need to get used to. The 167 damage model gives it a 3 headshot kill capability within 10 meters, and using the weapon from the hip at this range is more than workable provided you're running the right setup. Both the Engineer and the Light Assault classes can make good use of this weapon, and do so at different ranges and with different playstyles. So if you're looking for a weapon that isn't mind-numbingly straightforward, then the Pulsar C may be worth picking up. If this video has been interesting, helpful, or entertaining, please feel free to like, subscribe, tell your friends about the channel, and if you have any experience or thoughts using the Pulsar C, go ahead, leave them in the video description below. Thanks very much, folks. Wrel signing off.